Are y'all having fun? A great event. But without further ado, what we are going to be talking about, as Cody said, is paying creators. A spicy topic in the face of so much change happening in the creator economy. I kind of think about it as these three big A's happening. You've got the rise of algorithmic delivery. And do y'all know what I mean when I say that? Kind of the algorithm taking control. It's not about followers anymore. It's the content graph. It's TikTok. It's Reels. It's Short. Deciding who sees the content. That's taking over. And so, what is the impact on paying creators? We've got, of course, the rise of affiliate. So many of you here are so focused on affiliate, and there's this convergence of creator and affiliate. And so, what is that doing for payment models? And then we've got the rise of longer-term partnerships, ambassadorships, community. So these three A's are having a very significant influence in just the way that we pay creators. Some of the ways that we've paid creators historically, it's no longer the way that we're going to pay creators moving forward. For those who are less familiar with algorithmic delivery, I just want to double-click into that for a second. This is what I mean, and this is why it's having such a profound impact on the way that we pay creators, because the data you're seeing on the slide here is a creator's screenshot of their past 90 days of performance on Instagram. And so what you can see here is for the past 90 days, and this creator has about 100,000 followers, they got about 10 million, 10.5 million total views. Lower right-hand corner, you can see the number of people that they reached. But you can see the percentage of their followers that they reached with those 10.5 million views. It's 5%. And so this is profound. And this is something that I think we need to talk a lot about, because that changes everything. For the past, 15, 20 years, we've been using the influencer pyramid. Everybody familiar with the influencer pyramid? Yeah, with the megas at the top and the nanos at the bottom. Well, with that kind of fading, evolving because of algorithmic delivery, what does that mean for paying creators? So before we dig into really covering a lot of these different topics, I want to turn over to all of you to introduce yourselves. So Johanna, we'll kick it off with you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Johanna Voss. I'm a talent manager. I have my own boutique talent agency. I live in Denver, Colorado. I will ride or die for my talent. They are all currently influencers of color, which was kind of by default, and now it's by design. We do content in the travel, lifestyle, food, health and wellness space.
Mike.
I know, it's, I hope it doesn't get worse. So we do content in the travel, lifestyle, food and wellness space. A couple of my creators are here, so shout out to them. I am growing my roster this year, so if there's anyone who is looking for management, I'm always open for a conversation, or just generally if you want to pick my brain about talent management, because I know it's like this elusive thing that people have a lot of questions about.
Any creators in here looking for management? Yeah, oh.
There you go.
Lovely.
I can't really see you because of the lights, but I
Lights
see
are
you.
very bright.
Yeah.
All right, Brianna.
I'm Brianna Doe, founder and CEO of Verbatim. We're a boutique influencer marketing agency. And then I also create content I chose the nerdiest platform, but I create content on LinkedIn, mainly centered around entrepreneurship, mental health, burnout, things like that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kristina Nolan. I'm the Vice President of Media Services at DMI Partners. We're a full-service digital marketing agency helping brands extract the most value out of the marketing ecosystem through paid media efforts, affiliate, influencer, email marketing. But yeah, super excited to chat today.
Cool. And we do want to do this a little bit differently. We were talking in the back of the room about we want to engage y'all. We don't just want this to be a conversation amongst us. So even as we're having our conversation, if y'all are like, wait, question, or that's spicy, or please clarify, speak up, raise your hand, shout out your question. Definitely want this to be interactive.
There's also a mic that looks very unused in the middle.
Yeah.
So feel free to come right up to that.
But if you don't want to go to the mic, if you don't want it to be that official, you just want to shout it out, cool. We'll do our best to kind of reiterate the question that you asked. But also we want to save some time at the end of the panel. In the event you don't want to shout it out in real time, if you want to save your question for the end, Cool. All good. So, like I said, there is so much change happening in the creator economy that if we were to give the same exact brief to 10 different marketers, they'd probably approach paying creators in 10 different ways. There is so much change happening. And so with that, let's dig in. And so, with the rise of algorithmic delivery, with kind of the influencer pyramid evolving, fading, how do you feel, Joanna, I'll throw it to you first. What does that mean for paying creators?
It is all over the map, which I think is probably not a surprise to both the creators and the brands in here. It feels very much, I've been in the space for over 10 years, and rates and projects and opportunities and deliverables, terms of the deliverables from 2017, 2018, 2019 are so drastically different from 2025, and I feel like even different from like 2023 and 2022 projects. Because I've been in the space for a while now, I've started to realize that I've found myself being like, ooh, this feels like a 2018 kind of scope, which just sort of makes sense to me. And so I think now what we're seeing, it used to be just like, okay, deliverables, rate, much more transactional, a la carte, kind of it was what it was, and brands were like, great. There was no briefs, there was no concepting. It was just like, cool, we hope this works. Thanks for partnering with us. And now, as we know, there's so many more cooks in the kitchen on the brand side. There's a lot more platforms. There's a lot more information that the brands have handy to them that will determine and impact the partnership and the project. I think this is one of the great things about having a manager is like I'm very direct about what the project opportunities are, because at the end of the day, it's like I could say, oh, well, my creators' rates are $10,000 for an Instagram reel because we think or believe that to be true. But if a brand is like, that's cool, we have 5K, and maybe it's based on follower count, maybe it's not, maybe they're just like, that's what we have, that's what they have. And so I always like to remind creators that rates are kind of made up. They are, I think, sort of like what the market can potentially bear, and the market is drastically changing. We all know that 2025 projects and opportunities are very different even from 2024. And so for me, it's a lot more, and there's a lot more things to consider, like usage and exclusivity, paid usage, organic usage, whitelisting, dark post ads. Like there's so many other ways and things, print, social, web use, that there's just so many more factors that go into it that I don't think you can have. It isn't just that simple, 1 + 1 = 2 anymore. There's so many more questions involved. There's so much more information. What are the goals? What are the KPIs? What's the timing? What's the concept? How involved is this going to be? DIY home project creators is a lot more involved in a food creator than a fashion person who's showing the outfit of the day. So thinking about like all those sort of things are impactful. It's time. So many more creators are doing this as full-time work. So you really, like they have their sort of lows on like, well, they can't go further because by the time they pay out their manager, their team, their editor, their photographer, they're like, hey, I'm left with $800. And so just the math just doesn't work for them. So I think it is constantly changing. And if you are someone who isn't flexible in understanding that, and maybe rates are down a little bit now, or projects are less, therefore you may be more inclined to choose a lower project or a lower rated project because it's work begets work. There's just a lot more flexibility that goes into pricing and doing projects, at least now for like where we're at in 2025.
So much has changed.
Basically, yes.
The conversation reflects all of the change. And many years ago, it was a fairly simple back and forth and negotiation.
So simple.
And now with all of the change, with so much of the subjectivities, the algorithms, it's just a bit more back and forth. Also, probably creators are learning all of the nuances and how to negotiate, and so there's probably more back and forth. So, Brianna, to you, with everything changing again with algorithmic delivery, how should we be thinking about these terms that we've always used, like mega creator, macro creator, micro, nano, because a micro could reach a ton of people. A mega may not be reaching many people at all. So what's happening to these terms?
Yeah, this might be a spicy take, but I hear really often, I'm sure you all hear this too, these are just vanity metrics, like follower counts don't really matter anymore. I do not agree with that. I think there's still importance in them. I think it's the story that we're trying to tell with the followers, right? Like, let's say, perfect situation, we have an influencer, they didn't buy their followers, they're all organic.
Good for them.
That speaks volumes about the audience they've cultivated, the trust that they're building, the credibility that they've built, just different things, right? So it's about the story that we tell within those metrics. And in that same vein, follower count is not the most important thing. To your point, a nano influencer could drive 5 times the reach of a mega influencer. They could. They could also have a very targeted niche audience that speaks to a very specific demographic that aligns just perfectly with your brand's ICP, but not so much with another brand or another industry. And so I think as marketers and as creators, honestly, we need to start thinking about the story more holistically. Like, this person has 50,000 followers. That's great. How's the engagement? Not just the engagement rate, but the quality of the engagement. Are they sparking conversation in the comments? Are people actually converting from their posts? Are they clicking on their links? I think, kind of to your point, it was a lot simpler back in the day. You could just look at followers and that was it. And I think it can, like I said, it can tell a story, but we need to be willing to look past that. As a creator, I need to be able to say, okay, I have 200,000 followers. X percent is from this demographic. X percent is this. This is what I know about how they convert. This is the kind of content they're looking for. This is what they're trying to learn or engage with. And be able to speak to the value. And I think as creators are learning more and more, we are called to do that by brands. And brands also need to start asking those questions more instead of saying, mega doesn't matter, nano doesn't matter.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
To build on that, your hot take is that in some ways those terms still do matter.
Oh yeah, I don't know if I made that clear.
No, yeah. You made it clear. Yeah. But I guess that could also be true for non-algorithmic platforms, channels, because if you've got a blog, if you've got an email distribution list, those are not influenced by algorithms. And so in some ways those terms still very much hold true.
That's true. And also that just made me think as well, like, if we go back to the algorithm, we can't just rely on it. Like, if I paid a creator X amount of dollars today, I don't know how it's going to perform when they post it next week, right? Because we don't know necessarily what's going to happen. So how are we repurposing content? I think marketers also need to be thinking about that. Not just about the content living on this feed for 5 days, but how am I going to reuse this and put ad spend behind it or boost it or repurpose it in our own brand newsletter later on?
And what about the value of having a presence across multiple platforms, where it's not just a story of being a macro, a mega on Instagram, but you've got multiple platforms where you could reach your audience in some more reliably? Do you factor that into the conversation when you're talking to brands, the fact that, like, I know you reached out because you've got, one very specific platform in mind, LinkedIn, but just know that I've got a broader audience, a broader community on other places as well?
Yeah, that's a great point too. There's the more diverse or diversified your reach, I guess you could say, the more valuable, I guess you could also say, your content would be, or the impact is more widespread. I think the more you can diversify, the better. I also think it depends on if your audience is similar on other channels.
Totally.
It's gonna, inform the brand's decision as well. But if I can say, hey, I have 200,000 followers and a newsletter with 100,000 subscribers, they're all within similar demographics, that's gonna be a lot more valuable than just the 200K.
Totally. I think, Kristina, as we're talking about and debating whether the pyramid is still relevant, and in some ways, yes, and in some ways, maybe not, TBD. We'll have to wait and see how the pyramid fully evolves. But are there new ways that marketers are thinking about segmenting creators, whether that be kind of broadly or even within their owned communities? How should marketers be thinking about segmenting creators?
Sure, and I think there's a lot of alignment in what you said with how we're thinking about things, because there's really 3 different dimensions that we're thinking about when bucketing creators. And I'd say one is what I'll call like alignment. And that's usually with creators that have a smaller, more niche community, maybe not as large scale reach, but they resonate with the brand that we're partnering with them so strongly. Their audiences are completely aligned. The way that they speak to their audience is very similar to the way that the brand speaks to their customers, and that drives demand. But the second way we're thinking about it is really platform strategy. Now, more than ever, there's so many different social media platforms that our brands are investing in, and there's this need to feed the algorithm, and our brands just can't keep up with the amount of creative required to do that. And so they're heavily investing in creators to be able to help them accomplish that goal. And so if we see a YouTuber really good at storytelling, we may choose to repurpose that content through our paid efforts on YouTube. Same thing with kind of other content on other platforms. But that's really like the second most kind of important way we're thinking about it. And then the third I'll say is, and I'll give an anecdote to explain this, but I call them like force multipliers, but they're creators that really have an impact across like the entire marketing funnel. And so we represent a really large watch brand, and we partnered with the creator on an affiliate basis that drove so much traffic to a brand's landing page that we had to have like dev resources making sure that nothing crashed. But in addition to that, they drove so much demand. In 8 hours, they sold out a particular SKU. And we worked on that influencer with like paid amplification efforts that were really successful. But then we also took that UGC and repurposed it through our paid media efforts. And same thing, we saw the same type of crazy demand. We also tried it not only driving to their site, but via TikTok Shop. And so this one creator really fueled all of these different efforts. And so that third bucket is the relationships where you really want to be investing in long term. They clearly are driving not only brand equity, but demand as well. And having this like, they're almost like a channel in themselves. And so those are really like the three different buckets we're thinking about kind of this like new pyramid in is like alignment with more niche communities, platform strategy, and then, yeah, the like force multiplier effect.
That's awesome. So it's no longer just followers, but what are the results? What are they good at?
Yeah.
How do we kind of categorize segment creators based on the value that they're providing and pay them accordingly?
Especially in comparison to brand goals, which at one point I just feel like got away from brands when they were thinking about influencer partnerships. They would come to us and say like, we love this influencer, we want to partner with them. But when we were really thinking about the brand alignment and who that influencer's audience was, it was like, this really isn't a perfect match. And so now I feel like the space has evolved so much where we're starting to think about the nitty gritty about what are our brand goals as a whole and how can we make influencer a piece of every single one of those buckets.
Yeah, I love that. Is there any experimentation with working with creators that are totally brand aligned, who drive a ton of value, kind of thinking of them as your champions?
Yep.
They're just good across the board and almost working with them as ambassadors, as consultants.
Yep.
And how do you think about paying them and keeping them interested?
For sure. So, I think we're trying to think about creators, not just, I mean, they are strong partners for the business, but like, how can we layer them in almost as if they're like an employee of the business and they're bought into the company goals, just like an employee would be. And so a lot of times we're doing different things with them to update them on the brand marketing calendar and the things that we have planned in the next 6 months that excite them and kind of key them into different opportunities that they can have exclusive access to or things like that. The other thing is, I think compensation means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I think dollars are an extremely important component of that, but there's also other ways that we can compensate influencers that are beyond the dollars, or in addition to, I should say. So I've seen more brand trips this year than ever before promoted across.
Everybody agree? Like everybody's going on a trip.
And so, yeah, I would like to go on one, but anyway, so I think that's an additional way that we found creates a lot of value for every party. Like the influencer is being connected to the brand community, but also the creator community on those trips. They're being included in other creator content, which helps fuel their following. And then the brand is obviously being included in a ton of content across the creator ecosystem. And so those types of things go a really long way, again, beyond just like initial compensation to integrate a creator into your brand more holistically.
Such a good point. I kind of want to dig into that a little bit more. For you two, like, what are some really interesting ways you've seen brands compensate or provide value to, like, perhaps you as a creator that aren't necessarily monetary, that keep you super interested and super engaged?
Say access to opportunities is a big one. So for context, I create content. I mainly want to do like speaking engagements, travel more. I have a book coming out. Like looking for ways to promote all of those things is really important, and also just expand my networking opportunities. And so if a brand actually has access to interesting opportunities, I'm super fascinated in those, and I think there's also a lot of value in them. I might not see the initial, monetary value or reward, but that'll pay out over time, and that's more important than anything.
Yeah, similar to how, as a manager, I talk to my talent or just any other talent about don't think about each partnership in like a vacuum, but can this, help you leapfrog your portfolio? Is this with an agency that has a ton of partnerships, and so you can leverage it to build your relationships? I feel like so many people just think about, oh, well, I got asked to do X for X amount of money. No, that's not enough money.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, there's, try and just get him to think about the 360 of it.
Yeah.
I love hearing about all these things that brands are doing, like actually leveraging the content that they get and not thinking about it as like, oh, we paid for this, so we're just going to use it in that capacity. I am constantly amazed at how often I will have talent that does a campaign, does really well, organically, and they're like, okay, thanks.
Yeah.
And I'm like, can we do usage? Can we do UGC? Do you want to boost it? And they're like, no, we're good.
Yeah.
And it's like, but we're not talking lots of money. Like it's a little bit more. I think it's so much leverage out of it. So like it is so fabulous to hear about brands and agencies that are thinking about that holistically. And as Brianna said, any opportunity where it's honestly sometimes just the thought, like it's not even the monetary, oh, we'll give you this amount of product or we'll hook you up with this, but it's like, hey, we're thinking about this launch coming up.
Yeah.
And we're going to be in X place, or maybe it's not even a travel thing, but it's just something that it's like, hey, we thought of you and we'd love to have you there. It's honestly sometimes because talent is so often just sort of, we're at the very bottom of the, food chain on the whole marketing campaign, right? It's been happening for months and months and months before it finally gets to like the manager and the talent. So an opportunity where it's just like, hey, we've been thinking about you and like, this would be so cool. We're happy to fly you out. You can bring a +1. Sometimes that is just like such an invaluable experience. Yeah. And then the creator is so much more inclined to love up on the brand, do free content, do extra. It doesn't even have to be like something major, but it's literally just like, hey, we thought about you and this would be super cool. Or I can't even think of anything creative right now, but just
be
something
thoughtful,
on that vein.
Thoughtful, but compensation pay doesn't always mean money.
Right.
It means community management, community building, going the extra mile, exclusivity, access. There's so many things.
We're doing a tour, we're doing a pop-up, we're doing a launch, we're doing you have a book coming out. Like, oh, is there any way that we could partner and help? Can we buy 100 copies for our employees? Like sometimes it's just those little lifts, which means so much more to the creator than a brand spending like an extra $2K, which is, not that much, but it's like, again, just that thought.
Totally.
It's so invaluable.
Totally. And I would say for the marketers in the room, that can probably be an interesting way to think about ROAS or ROI, that some of the things that you could provide to a creator aren't necessarily expensive, but they mean a lot. And that can really be a clever way to drive efficiencies. I'm looking at the countdown clock and it's like we've got about 5 minutes left. There's a lot we wanted to talk about, but I know we also said we wanted to engage y'all. So any thoughts or questions that you want to shout out to us, or we can keep going. But we'd love to hear from y'all.
One question I have is, how do you see creators most successfully kind of like inching themselves to brand or upselling or negotiating? Like what metrics are they using? What are brands using? Are they connecting on the actual KPIs?
Yeah, great question. So just to sound that, or did everybody hear that? Everybody heard it? Just like what are creators using, which metrics are creators using to pitch themselves, I think was that in a nutshell.
Negotiation. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love your point of view there.
I love this question. You have to be creating content organically. This is one of the things that is very much like, wow, this is what influencer marketing is like now, and that's how it used to be. It used to be if you ever thought about doing a story, a post, or any piece of content, a blog or anything, you mentioned a brand, it's like, oh my God, I would never give away that content for free. And now, if you are not doing that, guaranteed you are losing every single opportunity. And when I'm pitching my talent or I'm reaching out for any sort of opportunity or thing, or my talent's like, hey, I really want to do this, I don't know, whatever, use this product, someone else is doing it. I'm like, great, show me your content. Because if I'm saying, hey, Shonda's like such a huge fan of Dove new moisturizer, blah, 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 and they're like, cool, she's literally never talked about us, never mentioned us. So I'm always sharing across examples. I use Influence Kit to help show, cull different sponsored and organic content around that theme or that specific product to show hey, they're already talking about this. It's already familiar with their audience. They've already integrated it. They've already done stuff for free for you. This is the kind of reach. This is the kind of impressions they've already got. Look at these saves, these shares. Look at these comments. Hey, here's a couple ideas of things they could do. They did this piece of content and it could have been such a perfect integration. Wow, their audience has been asking about this certain thing. So I'm just throwing as much data and proof that when I want to message and say, hey, my talent is the #1 fan of your brand, that I can actually back that up. Because if I'm not doing it, every single other person that's reaching out is doing that. And I use that for pitching, for upselling, when negotiating, trying to just make a connection and make inroads. It also means that you are tagging the brand on socials, and then that's sometimes the best way to get who's your agency of record, who are you actually working with on influencer marketing campaigns. So sometimes that is the best way to start to just get some contact. But that's the first thing that I always say is you have to be talking about ideally the brand or at least the type of content, and to be able to show, give that proof of concept.
I would say too, this depends on where you're at in the conversation with the brand. And I said this earlier in another panel, but just to dig into it a bit, I mentioned treat the marketer or the brand like they're your customer. I think understanding what they're trying to solve for, what pain points they're feeling, even what the campaign that they're trying to build is geared towards, what metrics they're tracking is crucial. If you come to them and say, hey, I can drive, 1 million impressions, they're like, we don't care about that. We're trying to drive X conversions or whatever the case may be. You need to be able to speak their language and to some extent understand what they're trying to actually accomplish. And that's going to position you a lot better than just throwing metrics at them that they don't necessarily care about.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, we're a very data-centric agency, and so we love to understand what performance looks like. But the other thing I'll just say is we also want the influencers, we care deeply about the content they're creating. And so we love when we see what we call the fear of missing out effect, but it's really influencers that are really good at driving demand in some way, whether they're doing a sneak peek of something and you don't know, but it's driving traffic because a consumer is clicking through to the next post to see something that they're excited about. Or if influencers are coming to us sharing what competitors are doing that we're not, that they could help us with. Again, our brands it creates a fear of missing out effect for the brands that we work with. But the storytelling component is so important, and it's why we value our creator relationships so much, because creators do so much more than an ad on Meta does. They can really showcase brand differentiators in a unique way that not a lot of other types of media channels can do. So that's important to us too.
Awesome. I would add that for the marketers in the room, to help creators with the metrics that matter more and more, share the performance of the campaign with the creator. Because if it's affiliate, sometimes the creator will have visibility. But so often, if you're putting paid media or other performance strategies behind the content, the creator never sees that. Just think about that. How often do we close that loop and have a conversation with the creator about how they performed? And that's unfortunate, because if the creator is doing really well, they can add that to their media kit and to their pitch. That's a great question. What happens if you get pushed back, Kristina, to you? If a creator says, hey, could you give me my performance metrics? And the brand's like, we're not sharing that. What do you do?
I mean, we as an agency, we're like advocates for both parties. And so we would really work with the brand to understand like what they are comfortable with sharing. It wouldn't be acceptable for us to say to a creator, we're not willing to share with you anything because again, it's a partnership. It goes both ways. And so I would say like that's where an agency can be really valuable in advocating for creators is really helping to get that data. And the brand should be willing to share with you something helpful because again, it is a partnership. So that's my perspective there.
Well, maybe ask before, like have that conversation.
That's
before
true
you
too,
even-
yeah.
Oh, yeah, in the
When you're
beginning.
negotiating or
In the
when you're contract
negotiation
stage.
phase, yep.
Yeah, because then you'll be able to kind of set the scene more as opposed to,
Yeah.
weeks out from the partnership, you're like, hey, by the way,
Yeah.
it's metrics, and they don't want to share it.
Yeah.
Yeah, really great questions, y'all. We've got like 30 seconds left, but let's get to it. What's your question?
Could you guys talk about the importance of speed to payment to creators?
It's a great one. So
It's important.
the question was the importance of speed to paying creators. So, paying creators as quickly as possible.
One thing I'd like to say about that, even if, okay, so you don't work with a creator in a vacuum, right? After you're done with the partnership, they can still talk about your brand. Like, they can still talk about their experience. Their friends come to them asking, what was your experience like partnering with this brand? They'll share that too. I think we just need to live in reality, like about payment terms.
Yeah.
Net 30 is respectful, it's
Yeah.
appropriate. Net 45 is okay,
Yeah.
sure, if you're like Nike. Net 90,
Yikes.
net 180, I had a friend
Yikes.
get that once.
Yeah.
Like, I think just live in reality about that, be realistic. I understand the bigger the brand, the more red tape with that kind of thing. But it comes down to, it's a partnership,
Yeah.
like you mentioned, and respecting that partnership, respecting the creators that you're working with, the time and energy they put into creating the content for your brand. I think compensating them fairly and quickly is the least you can do.
And I think from taking what Brianna said about being realistic about it and all the red tape and all the different people that are involved in it, I'm obviously coming from the talent manager side, so this is quite a pain point for me and my creators. I don't get paid until my talent gets paid. So I feel the pain on the delay to creator. It is, and I'm not defending, I want to be very clear, I'm not defending what I'm about to say, that brands and agencies are gonna, that it's okay what they do. But what Brianna was just saying, there is so much red tape, and you could be talking to, Samantha, who's an accounts, like the marketing person. A lot of agencies outsource to third-party vendors that are not based in the United States, and they do not give two hoots about your contract terms on payment. They probably don't even have it, honestly. And there's so many people between who you may be talking with for your partnership project and all the other people that the invoice has to get passed to, and then all of a sudden they are like, oh, there's a new vendor payment processing that the person you're talking to didn't even know about. So then you're filling out new vendor paperwork. Again, I'm not defending it, but I'm just saying it is a realistic thing. And the only thing that I can say is just stay on it, know your due dates, follow up, friendly reminder. Do not ever get mean or angry, because even if it's not their fault, like they're gonna remember that about you, and like it could cost you future partnerships. But just staying on them, like literally friendly reminder, I'm just following up, who else do I need to speak with? Are you missing any paperwork? Like literally just asking those questions and staying on it. Is there ever a point when I have had to bring in legal or threaten legal? Absolutely, and it's gotten paid. Are there times when things have gone public and that's how people have gotten paid? Yes, but do your best just to stay on it. And, again, ask all those questions. Do you have all the paperwork? Here's the invoice. Like just constantly being on it, but know that it does happen, and it's not like the best part of our industry by any means.
Yeah.
For the brands in the room too, it is like a piece of the negotiation where we've seen creators be more willing to potentially discount some of their rates for much quicker payment. Like we say we can either pay them up front or we can pay them 5 days after delivery. That can go a long way in showcasing like negotiations that like you want to be a true partner to them, and maybe you can't meet the rate in which they're at, but where can you get flexible with them? And I always think like paying quicker is the best way to be able to come to an agreement if you can't pay exactly their rates.
Or half up front.
Yeah,
half
exactly.
delivery.
Yep.
Such good points. Yeah.
kind of bouncing back to the compensation models that you guys touched on. You guys mentioned like brand trips and stuff like that. I know like boxes at context. Have you all asked like creators what would be ideal as a trade-off, or have creators ever expressed that they would rather prefer to have like exclusive dinner with the founder or something else? Like, what is that conversation?
Yeah, I would say you historically it's been like dictated by the brand where they've said, you know what, there are three like key activations we want to do with influencers as part of strengthening our partnership. But I do think more and more influence like as these brand trips become more popular, they know that and want to be a part of those conversations when they're happening in order to get the invite. So we do often see like creators hint to it at us, like keep me in mind if you're doing some sort of brand trip. And so if that is important to you, or if there's a couple of key brands you'd love to go on a trip with, I would say that's really important when you're collaborating with them, is to make sure you're mentioning that. But yeah, usually we've seen that dictated primarily by the brand. But I think as they become more popular, it's going to be something that's like on the table for a lot of brands. It's going to be integrated into most brand strategies. And so there will be even more opportunity.
Cool. Well, thank you all so much. Yeah, thank you.